second half, and then Heath pulled it
Was that double overtime?
back up and no,
Oh, single.
no.
Single.
No, it didn't go into overtime. Denton Jacob hit a 3-pointer with like 3.5 seconds left or something like that. It was how come they can't light that gym better?
I don't know.
It's awful. It's like playing in a cave.
It's not, the lights, that's probably, it seems like they're getting worse all the time. I don't know.
They should be upgraded.
They're mercury vapor, but they've been there since they built that gym.
Yeah. They should be upgraded. It's just,
I'll tell you something you might not know. That gym when it was put in here, there's springs under the floor.
You were
It's a
kind
floating floor.
of, I knew she didn't mention anything, you kind of just, every time someone said something, you kind of.
there's springs under the basketball court?
Under the wood of that court, there's springs about that high. Where you can rest on each, where there's a crease.
Really? Why is that?
They just wanted to, they said that was something that was gonna be new, and they talked them into doing it. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Well, Bob, 5:30, you wanna?
Gosh, Bob, no,
Get us started.
not many people are interested in hearing. My gosh.
Get through real fast. No question. Just say yes to everything I ask. Number one on the agenda, we have only made one purchase this year of rock salt. I think we committed 700 or 800 tons this year. Remember, we have at least received 90% of that, or we go for 10%. So far, we have bought 390 tons, and we have filled up our barn. We've only dipped into it once or twice this year, so.
You know how much they've taken out of it, over 390?
Oh, not much. 9 year last one.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And we did talk today about if we have to purchase at least probably 300 or 400 more ton, that but I think we can get it in the barn. And I think we'll probably end up using some more anyway, but it could be full, and we won't have to purchase it. Probably 410, maybe more.
Bob and I had a brief conversation earlier today during our department head meeting. I'm not complaining about the lack of snow. Just saying, but you know, the state. Was it state legislature, state government that did the squeeze to us, Bob? Okay. You guys remember how before you would say how much salt you wanted to buy, and then you had to purchase 80% of that amount, but you could purchase up to 120% of that amount at the state bid price. Well, the state changed that. Now it's a 90-110. So they've kind of squeezed us a little bit on this. So we have to purchase at least 90% of what we said we were going to purchase, you know, back in September or whatever it is, where we put in the amount. If it looks as if we're not going to have enough room to store all the salt that we will have to purchase, we can't just, you know, leave it outside, you know, in a pile somewhere. So if it starts to look that way, we probably won't be the only entity in that same kind of a fix. So we'll look to try to partner with some other area communities or whatever to see if there's any storage that we could use together to house the salt that we have to have. I tried to think of, I couldn't think of any facility that we own that could use or something.
You can't cover it outside, right?
I mean,
put a tarp on for a while, but. You guys have room at North? Would you have room? I
Probably about in
mentioned
the same
that.
boat, we're probably in the same boat.
Yeah, probably. So. How many salt bars do you have?
One, just one.
Is that the ones down on East Main Street?
And it could be the county might have something somewhere.
Or ODOT.
So we've only made, we maybe spent 30,000 this year. So we didn't spend anything in December between rock salt and the brine. Spent about 31,000 so far, which is way down from what we would do in November, December, January of the winter season. So, and overtime would be down. So really we are, whether we have to purchase the salt or not, the overtime will be down. So, I like warm winters. I'm gonna stay in a hot office days as well. We got a call from a resident on 13. She had a sinkhole in her driveway. Eddie might have reported on this or will report on it. That there is an old, there's a catch basin up by Hopewell on 13, and it goes down State Route 13 towards downtown. It would be on the west side of 13 from Hopewell.
Across from where they had the water main break, right there on 13, south just a little bit below the.
This is on the west side of 13. We think it, and we have no idea who put it in, but it goes all the way down to the river, and I think it's just starting to get just, it's either tile or it's something old that's giving way. So, but the sinkhole was getting near the road. We didn't want to lose in our road, so we filled the sinkhole up. We're going to do some investigation on it. It's a possibility that we don't know if it's ours, if it was put in by the North Township at one time. We have no idea. But there is a catch basin, and it does run all the way down to the river and dumps it there. There's that culvert down there by National Drive. It's a huge culvert. It goes right inside that culvert. And so we're going to do some investigation just to see, but be prepared that if it would be our responsibility. Now, I don't think we have to do culverts underneath the driveways, but we may have to replace that pipe going down there. But they used to had a neighbor that had a sinkhole too right next door to her. But right now, we just filled it up for her.
In the same area there along the roadway?
Right next door to them. They put some concrete pad over it to fill it in.
Just had an idea, I don't know why
And
this
it's
didn't
deep,
come to
too.
me.
It's like really deep.
I don't know why this didn't come to me last week. I mean, is there a manhole? Can we access this drain pipe?
There's no manhole. It's a catch basin and it goes all the way down the river until you get to the river there. I mean, it's a small creek down there by that old gas station that goes underneath the 13.
I wonder if we could use the wastewater's camera and camera it and see if it has collapsed.
Yeah, you won't be able to go very far, I think. I think it's bad everywhere.
So it's collapsed, you mean?
Yes, some places it has, so it would, you can only go so far. You could dig out someplace and then try to run water both ways and see if it's coming out. Nobody, I mean, the old street guys are all gone. I don't know the history so much of the streets like I do the parks. So we're just trying to figure out who owns it, who's responsible, which is what we try to do every day. Because nobody knows.
Mhm.
So, like, again, we just filled it up for her. She was very happy with that. It's a place to do that. And we will monitor it. But just want to let you know in case there's something that we have to do. Maybe the city of Newark. Also, number 3, curb cuts and subdivisions. Again, Eddie might have talked about this, or he will. The curb cuts that we allow in our subdivisions, a lot of them are for downspouts off of houses, and also sump pumps. And some of the places, you know, that I noticed one place, in particular in River Oaks, there are places in Greenbrier that water is getting onto our streets and they can't get to the catch basins. And when that happens during the wintertime, it freezes. And in River Oaks, there's one place that goes clear across the road. And that causes a hazard and also it's bad for our streets. Greenbrier is very bad about that, so Eddie's gonna try to change that some way where if you have an existing sump pump going into our street, we will probably let that go until we maybe pave that area. And then try to get you to tie it into our storm sewer so the water doesn't ever go into our streets at all. But to me, it's getting to be a hazard. I don't understand why we were allowed that in the first place. But it will tear up the streets and it's a hazard for everyone that lives around there. So Eddie may be coming out and explain that a little bit more, how we're gonna do that, but I think that if we ever do Greenbrier, we will try to tie all those in to the storm sewer and also the roads areas where people come for something like that. The mayor has kind of asked me to look at maybe future paving projects in the future and the cost of those. And we don't have to add these up, but I just wanted to give you a view of how expensive it is to pave, especially when we only have $150,000 to $175,000 coming in per year to our license plate tax money. I looked at River Oaks, and these are just some of the streets, and if you're familiar with it, Blue Jack Lane, and these are estimates from Joseph Henderson. $128,000 alone just to do Blue Jack Lane. And these are courts, White Oak Court, $19,000, Cherry Bark Court, $39,000, English Court, $2,000, Pin Oak Court, $51,000, Willow Oak Court, $36,000, River Oaks Drive, which is like Fox Run Drive, with the land of 747 on it, $139,000. So, you know,
Is that just asphalt, Bob, no curbs?
that's just asphalt only. That's milling and asphalt.
What's the total?
I don't know. I thought you were doing that in your head, Doug.
River Oaks.
Not this week.
I flunked general
39.
math.
You know, I was gonna add that up, but it's just estimated. 220, 240, 280, 260, 260 and 133, 90, around 390,000 to do one subdivision, which we couldn't even do if we saved money for 2 years. So the need of us to have money to do paving on top of the money that we have from our license plate tax is imminent that we're going to pick up the streets in the city. And that is no curb repair, which we need in Greenbrier, Claren Drive, Southgate. There's a lot of areas, even in River Oaks, the catch basins, some of them need to be repaired. I think the curb and gutters look pretty nice here still. Daisy Lane, we've had complaints there off of Dorsey Mill Road, on different places. So there is a need for more money for paving in the future. So, and I'll continue to get some estimates on other projects that we're trying to do. But I thought that might put things in perspective to do, and that's not even to do all of River Oaks. That's only a little bit past that four-way stop sign going toward the newer division to where you turn down the Cherry Bark Road. That's where we would end. Now, the original River Oaks is probably going close to 25 years old, somewhere in there, the original. And then the new portion, we got maybe 10, 15 years ago, maybe around 10.
Does the area around River Oaks have as many natural springs and stuff as like Forest Hills or Willow Ridge?
I've
those
never,
hills?
there's only one place that I know that water has flowed, but I've never seen it reach the street. But some of the lots were wet in some areas,
Uh-huh.
but it's not as bad as Greenbrier or Huber has, I mean, we have a spring in Huber addition coming out of the road,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
You know, no, River Oaks isn't as bad, and maybe that's why it's lasted.
Yeah, there's one on Berkshire that comes up out of the street.
Yes, we looked at that.
Tested that 2 or 3 times before I was convinced that it's not a water leak.
So, you know, and I have some other estimates, but I'm gonna keep these, and then, you know, luckily we're going to Green Valley Drive this year, but with all that, you know, with, you know, the 2 estimates we have here, just do Green Valley Drive with drainage, you know, is $165,000. You know, when we did Wedgewood, it was $300,000 to do Wedgewood, replace the curbs and gutters. And I think it does make the subdivisions nice, but when at Clarendon Drive now, what we're facing on Clarendon Drive, we took a risk to pave Clarendon. That's what the old had cement in there, but every joint now, we put the sanding on there to try to prevent all the water coming up, pushing up the road. Well, almost every joint where that concrete was, it has come up. During the winter time, it's worse. That's when it comes up. During the summertime, it goes back down some, but some of them are left there. And all the curbs and gutters placed on Clarendon Drive. So those are projects that, you know, over time, we'll have to do. You know, Cynthia Street needs paved. We paved that, what, maybe less than 10 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And it needs paves,
Yeah.
maybe 8 years, so it seems like a lot of the paving doesn't last as long, so.
You know, those people that live up there by the end on 30th, they sure do use that road a lot. They just.
Those are right in the road where they turn in and out.
Yeah, I know. Swainford does not have curbs, does it?
No.
And Louise does not have
No,
curbs,
no.
right? It's just Clarendon that goes.
It's clear. But we've had complaints and a lot are in front of people's driveways, and we try to patch it. When we paved it, we didn't have enough money to do the curbs and gutters there.
Mhm.
Of course, if you go back to the old days of Clarendon Drive, we had no drainage whatsoever, and we used to go in people's yards. I'm sure if anybody was on council or around there, we got a lot of complaints about it. We fixed that and made that better for them. But the curb and gutters is something that we've had complaints. Apparently, I've been over to Whispering Pines with complaints on the curbs over there. So we're getting to the point where there are things that are happening that people are looking at us to fix them. And right up to this point, we've had to say no.
The idea that we're working toward is to be able to, on a map and also on a kind of a spreadsheet, be able to show people without additional revenue, counting only on the license plate revenue, here's how much we can repave throughout the city of Heath. But with an additional, choose your figure, amount of revenue each year dedicated to street paving and curb replacement, here's how much we would be able to do over that same period of time. So Bob's working on Bob and the street department are going to be working on trying to identify, prioritize, help figure out how much different streets and curbs in some cases would cost, so that we can map out the A and the B.
We've also been replacing catch basins the last couple of years, especially since Chris has come on as a foreman. In the middle of 79, down by Walgreens. I mean, when you do the extent of some of those are $5,000 to $10,000 to fix those catch basins. So it's the infrastructure is very important to keep up, making sure we do everything. So we will continue to do that as much as we can, and I really try to do that on my budget as much as possible. So we'll continue to do more catch basins for that too.
Are those estimates on be paying last year's prices?
He did, these for me, probably in November, December, so they're not, more like 2
Barrel of oil was down another 15, 20.
Well, it is down, we'll,
Over last year, and
that's, again,
down another $50 over the previous year. And
Whether or not our area asphalt plant chooses to share those savings will be something for us to
I
see.
have a theory on that.
I have a lot of theories too, and I'm not, I always thought when oil went down, it would help the
Amazing,
consumer,
huh?
because then gas would be cheaper, and then it put more money in our pockets to spend on other things. But apparently, everybody invests in oil, and it ruins everything, like the housing market did. So again, we're somehow losers. I don't know.
So the oil companies weren't the root of all problems.
You're retired, you don't care. And that's all I have, unless somebody else has something under other items.
Okay, Bob. And it's 550.
I don't think so. You want me to go through it?
Yeah, okay, I'm gonna call Parks Rec and Davis Shea to order at 5:50. Todd?
All right, I have a legislative request tonight to, appropriate $25,821.65 for the capital improvement fund to seal the pool parking lot. That is one of the items that the mayor, designated as a capital improvement. For this year, we had $26,000, put in for capital improvements, and again, it's $25,800, so it's $100 less than that, so,
Good guesstimate.
You got an extra digit in there somewhere. There's 4 after the comma. That's not even how much, I think 200 and some thousand.
well, because I retyped it today, I'm gonna give you 2 more.
Can that money be used on streets instead?
Not that, where you gonna, I mean, you can do one little side street maybe somewhere.
Well, if streets fall apart, I'm concerned about sealing bike paths.
We're not selling the bike path, we're selling the full parking.
This legislative request is for the pool parking lot, seal
Full
it.
parking.
It says here,
It
sealing
did,
bike path.
but it's changed. This legislative request is for the full parking lot.
Yeah, we'll talk about the bike paths here in just a minute.
You okay with that, Dick?
That's also straight,
All right,
right?
let's.
Bob?
Yeah, restriping.
Striping and everything.
Yep, it'll be complete sealing and restriping the full parking lot. And if you don't do that, you end up what you did out here at the City Hall parking lot. You wait too long, then you have to mill it all the way down. You're taking care of it for a few years, yeah. If you can't keep it up a little bit better.
You want to go ahead and talk about,
Yeah,
I'll
I mean-
mention the bike paths.
Go
We
ahead.
also have an estimate for resealing bike paths throughout the city. We have begun working with, talking to the Licking County Park District. We have a good sense that they will contribute half the money to seal the bike paths throughout the city, which, Bob, if my memory serves, we were looking at about 24,000 was the
It's
cost
around
to reseal.
between 21 and 22,000.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Okay. So, what we're talking about would be to split that cost with the Licking County Parks District. Prior to us getting that money, we need to have a management agreement in place. Last week, kind of late last week, we received from the County Parks District a proposed agreement. I think one based off of maybe some other management agreement that they have with a different community. In reading through it, it's a little too non-committal for my taste on the part of the Parks District. Uses of the word may instead of shall. So, I'm going to work with David Morrison to work with the Parks District, come up with a management agreement that we can both sign off on. But in essence, what it was defining was for a 5-year period of time, projects that are mutually agreed upon by both, the costs for them would be split. So that's why the bike ceiling one, Dick, wasn't part of what Bob was presenting tonight, because we don't have that management agreement finalized yet.
Yeah, we were gonna talk about it, and it was gonna be on the agenda, but I had sent the agenda out, and then the mayor and I talked about it, and we wanted to hold up on the bike path, so that's why it was on the agenda. I had already sent it out, so, yeah.
So we'll be waiting until the contract is finalized for the management agreement, and then we'll be.
Yeah.
Bob Williams has already been to his board, and tentatively they have approved giving us the money towards the project.
Just need to work on the language.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Question, do you think there's a chance that the Reese Foundation would help us in paying for the other half of that? I mean, I don't know. It
I
might be
signed the
a reach.
maintenance agreement with them.
Oh, I know we did. I just didn't know if maybe they had some extra money hanging around. They might help.
Typically, the Reese Foundation has historically has been involved in the development of new paths, not the maintenance of existing ones. As a matter of fact, where in the city of Heath they have been involved in helping to develop our bike path system, the agreements specifically state that Heath is responsible for the maintenance of those.
Right.
So, you know, the answer to every unasked question is no, but historically they have not been involved in maintaining, they've been involved in the creation of, development of new paths.
We can write them a letter, maybe they'll say no, or.
That's what I say, I mean, that's, the answer to every unasked question is no, it's just, they typically have not done that.
Okay.
And they tried to steer away with that, but I think they were instrumental in some ways to get the maintenance through the Lincoln County Park District to go through, which is helping.
Yeah, you know, people in Heath pay that
Yeah.
into the county parks system, just like everybody else in Licking County. And I think, you know, we had a conversation before, whereas to date, can't really say that any of that money has come back into the community. Well, through this maintenance agreement, and that's why, for me, the mays need to change to shalls, because I want a longer-term partner to ensure that not just this particular $10,000 or $11,000 on this particular ceiling plan, but moving forward, you know, they're going to partner with us, and so that money will come back into the community.
Well, and this agreement should mirror what other communities in Licking County should be receiving as well.
It's all the same agreement. That's how he explained it to me. When they enter with Johnstown, Newark, Alexandria, Granville, it's the same agreement.
It's a 50-50. So if
A
we're marking.
50-50 on if they approve to go ahead and do the project, probably like no cats or anything else. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Yeah, it's specific that they have to be mutually agreed upon projects, which makes sense. I mean, if I'm running the Parks District, I don't want each municipality committing me to whatever without me having a say-so. But that doesn't prevent us, if we want to, from doing something on our own. If they don't agree to it, that doesn't mean we can't do it
We'll make sure
ourselves.
that we're on the same level playing field with all the other communities. If we've got a draft and we're marking it up with the mays to shalls, et cetera, what are the other communities doing? And how do we stack up with our final document versus some other finished documents? That's my question.
David's, let me see, probably shouldn't mention what his legal opinion was on that. When you read the document, like I said initially, it's a little, it's not as committed enough as I would
Oh, I
prefer to see.
understand.
Now, if other communities in the county are okay with that, that's up to them. To me, it just didn't, I'm looking for something a little bit more.
I don't want any of those escape clauses like mays or walk away type
Mhm.
language.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, okay, just a question.
I don't think it's insurmountable. We haven't had that discussion with them yet, but I don't think it's insurmountable. We'll see how it goes.
They can help, look, they've done a lot of bank restoration, you know, if you go down Granville, past rivers, that's where the railroad tracks, we have one, the Hopewell, near a river, he said he could help look at that, assess, they've done that many times, they could help us with that, and hopefully money-wise, they could help us with that, because those can be very expensive. And, we start to lose our bank on the Hopewell one, we could be in trouble there, just like in another place. We don't have so much bridges when we have a trestle, but other than that, we don't have as much as what some of the other communities have. But to me, any money that we can get to help us maintain, because we're behind schedule on doing the ceiling on those two. You were half right, Mayor, that the bike path ceiling was 21.5, but then if I added in Gillard Park, the circle one we have within Gillard Park, that was in there 32, so that brings it up to.
That was the figure I had in my head. Yeah, okay.
And I think what, Lincoln County Park District was looking at giving us half of the 21,585, which
Yeah.
tentatively they had said yes to that. And he seemed, when I asked him about that, he seemed pretty confident that they could do that.
Mhm.
But we have to have this management agreement in first before they release any funds to us. Go ahead, any other questions?
Do you mind if I?
No.
Is it possible that they would be able to assist us with the Giller Perk as well, mostly because we haven't asked for their assistance, which was their reasoning for not assisting us beforehand?
On the third of the mile one?
Yeah.
It's possible I could add that when we get done with this maintenance agreement. If not, we're gonna get it done anyway, because I might try to put it in my budget.
But we might be able to get their help just because there's been an extra year of us not asking. It's not much money for them.
For 1,500, they might be able to do that. We can bring that up.
Yeah.
I'd say that estimate came in late, so.
Yeah.
Any other questions on that? Okay, Bob.
And then, since we're on bike paths, Mayor, have you discussed the Hopewell bike path at all, or is there anything you wanna say?
Just that we've been approached by the folks from the county park district about an effort to extend the bike path where it dead end the credit union and the Mid-Ohio offices. Take the path across Hopewell on up the old railroad track there behind Meritor, and then somehow or another cutting it back in and tying it in, I think over by the YMCA or something.
Well, no, it goes to 40, then to the Eagles, if you know where the Eagles
Oh, yeah, yeah.
is on 40. And then, because this is kind of like a national bike trail, they built paths, but also use streets. So
Yeah.
they would connect to that, cross the Grant Street Bridge, go to Williams, go down Williams Street, onto Church Street, you'd have to go a little bit, then that gets you to the Y. But this is the connection they needed to get to that point. But it's a combination of bike paths you build and also city streets, yes.
Yeah.
And then there will be signs designating those areas too.
Yeah.
So if that happens, which you still have to go on a city street, but it would connect us to the path on 16 and
Yeah.
all the places it goes to, and, you know, I mean, literally, you could go from Johnstown to Arkansas on a bike if you wanted to. It's a long drive, but, you know, I always wanted that connection in some way. We always have had to try to find a way to connect to the bike paths, and then that goes all the way to Hanover, everywhere, so.
They've taken a look at it. They have looked at the.
They've been looking.
They've looked at the signage that would be needed. During the meeting, I expressed a concern for safety of those using the path. What they would have in place would be not just standalone signs, but if you're a path user, there would be kind of like if you're crossing a street, there's something there that you can push that then trips the lights on one of the signs to further warn cars that they need to yield to the bikes or people walking on path across Hopewell. Obviously, the safest thing to do is to not have traffic cross Hopewell at grade, but the costs of either tunneling or bridging over make it, prohibitive. And they were able to show me data that indicates that this type of signaling system and signage system has worked in other areas to make it as safe as it can be.
There was talk that we had a while back about extending the bike path and connecting you to Newark down off of Keller Drive. And now there was that little section of ground where they didn't really want to let us have an easement or right of way. We talked about cross the street, come back, but to me that seems like it would be less traveled city streets if we could make the connection that way. Do you know what happened to that deal? I mean, is it dead deal now, or is
It hasn't gone anywhere.
is it the same people talking about this connection up here that would
No.
totally different?
Not totally, but not the same.
Okay.
Some parties are different, some are the same.
Just curious. It just seemed like it would make more sense to tie in the
Yeah.
system over there than it would going down through
It would
William
make
Street
sense
and
to
all
tie
that,
them in
so-
both ways.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Since the Reese Foundation is instrumental in the development of bike paths, are they gonna be financing this?
My understanding is the Parks District has been in contact with them.
So what's our financial role in this?
So that,
None.
Zero.
Zero?
they won't be putting in money in.
We won't.
We won't. Reed's Foundation.
I think they're
looking
trying
into
to
it,
work
couldn't we?
with Licking County Park District, those two.
Couldn't we?
It's not signed, sealed, and delivered yet, but there's conversations.
Well, I mean, they have the money that would help to tunnel, bridge that bad spot right there to where, the Reese Foundation, the ones that really pushed, I think, hard for the bike paths all over the county. And I think that this one section right there it's instrumental in tying it to places east of Newark and on to Johnstown, the bike path going. I just think maybe we need to see if we can enter into some
Is there a cost
discussion with them.
estimate, is there a cost estimate for the tunnel?
When I mentioned it, it was mentioned that it would be.
I don't think they.
Also, you gotta remember this. We have a big storm drain pipe that runs on the west, well, what would it be? It would be on the, let's just say
The east side.
the Hopewell Commons side of Hopewell Drive. You can't tunnel under that thing.
Ronnie,
Maybe the crossing Hopewell, I don't know if it's state or federal, there was some grants for the Safe Way to School or something. Remember,
Yeah.
Tim may be familiar.
Yeah. Probably wouldn't qualify because it's not close to a school. You'd have a really hard time justifying it as a school route from that far away. One of the criteria that they look at for that, I believe, is how close is it to the school.
Okay, anything else on the, football like that? Okay, good.
Good, other item.
Okay, other items, we need to have a discussion about the Davis Shai House and the Arts Council, and I know I attended the last Arts Council meeting, and, things are reaching a point where, the Arts Council's done everything they can, but I think that they can't go on much longer the way things are, and, I know that the mayor and Bob have met with Park as well, and we're gonna have time for everybody to have a discussion about that, but I think that, the Arts Council, everyone, when I was there, was sitting around that table. I think their main concern is, what's best moving forward, and so I think that after the Oktoberfest, and what was raised there, it's kind of, pretty clear that it's not a sustainable model the way it is now to continue the way that it is, without the funding that the city used to provide. So I think we need to make some decisions, because I think there are some important things in place that we don't wanna lose. And so I think we need some time to work with the Arts Council and, be able to move forward in that positive way, because I know, just things like, they've got a liquor license that we don't wanna lose. I think we've got the 501c3 you don't wanna lose. They've got a contract with the school that's bringing in $20,000, and we don't want the doors to shut and then just lose all that, when that's money that could keep it going, because we still have that requirement to have 4 cultural arts events. I've said over and over about the maintenance costs, and I think that one thing that we need to look at is the money that we didn't pay last year, and maybe paying some towards this year, just to get us through maybe this first quarter, where we could sit with them and look at what is this model gonna look like going forward. I talked with them about, at this point, we don't have the money to send what we used to send. I think that we all know that because of being upside down with our budget, but I think we need to put something out there to get us through a few months to, be able to work with them. And I know they're looking to add some board members and, bring some positive new energy to work with the people that have already invested time. And so, I just wanted to start the discussion, and I know, Park, you're here, and I just wanted to open it up to you to see if you had anything you wanted to say as the discussion starts.
I've got new figures, that I've reviewed, and we're okay till May.
Okay.
Okay, meaning, kind of as a skeleton crew working there. But, last Saturday, for example, we had a wedding, there was a wedding, I'm not sure what you call it, but where all the caterers and cake makers and everybody gets together, and they were in downtown Newark.
Yeah.
It was a tremendous response. There's more weddings that are gonna get booked, and we kinda have to know, after May, what's gonna be happening with us. Or with that house. It's your guys' house, not, we're running it, but we can run it the best we can. Everybody that's there is, very optimistic and happy, and Bob and John's have been very engaging and communicating very well with us, and we're excited about that. And we are adding new board members. I think we'll probably see a board member or two leave. Their terms are up, and I don't know that for a fact, but the house it does need to be run a little bit differently, but we're gonna run out of money. That's the fact. We keep getting kind of little extensions when we book something, and we look forward to that. I don't think that we've come up with some, perfect answer that, this thing's gonna happen this way. But without some funding or some help, from the city, it's gonna be a pretty dark area. But it's, good till May, that's a reasonable amount of time, and we keep kind of, Denise and Lisa, they keep making these jumps, and all of a sudden they go, well, we got the school for a little more time, and, the school is great. They come in, we don't have to do much work for them, weddings are very good profit. You know, the Oktoberfest got us through about a month. You know, those are all good things, but, and I think that a new board or some new board members are gonna have some different ideas and ways to do that, but, you know, we continue to plug along, but we are gonna need your help, and we do need help. So, you know, taking, you know, the complete bed tax away is it's a whole different program.
But how much money did we not send? Do we have it down on that?
What was
last
the
year?
bed tax from last year, Jay? We never heard that figure, just I didn't. Okay.
And, but, we, I guess what I was asking is, we owed them money from last year for maintenance, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Do we know what that dollar amount was?
Well, they paid Craig White, to do the maintenance, and it was a little over $12,000 for last year, and of course, they were paying him ongoing. And I think that's the first step is, you know, my initial thoughts coming here was that, you know, maybe we look at $15,000 to pay for that cost and for the first 3 months of this year, to give us time to sit together and work with, them to determine moving forward what is sustainable and what can, you know, they do, you know, are there ways, you know, I told them it's a difficult discussion because I think that, you know, everyone involved with the Shai House has done wonderful things, but I think, you know, it's kind of reached the point where we can't do it the way we've always done it, and I don't know what that picture looks like exactly, and it's difficult for people that are employed there full time because that may not be the way it has to move forward, I don't know, but I think that, it's like I said, the Oktoberfest was kind of an eye-opener for me because there was so much hard work that went into that, and even with the city paying some expenses, and, you know, a lot of the money came from sponsorships, you know, $9,000 was raised, and if that 4 times a year is not gonna run that facility, even if we were lucky enough to get that much 4 times a year. And so, you know, I guess I need to hear from some other people what you think, because I think we have a real responsibility, because I've heard several council members saying, we don't wanna run the Shai House. The city has no business running the Shai House. And so we need to make sure we can keep an entity in place that can make that happen.
Deb, may I?
You may,
Yeah,
yes.
thank you. Park is correct in that we have been engaged with the Arts Council for, well, even after the Oktoberfest event, because we were working with them on the Christmas event. That was another of the co-sponsored events, as you all recall, that we covered the expenses for out of the initial appropriation that council had. I agree with Park in that our conversations have been positive and I think productive. Deb, Bob, Jay, and myself attended an Arts Council board meeting back in December where it was outlined for us that without, you know, any, I guess, big influx of revenue, they anticipated, the Arts Council anticipated, given their existing payroll, that they would run out of money on February 19th. Park's right, we met with Park, Bob and I met with Park last week, and then we met with Denise Schwartz, that's right, Park Schwartz, the day after that. And there's a kind of like an online school service that is utilizing the basement area where we have the smart board for part of their function, and I think it's for testing purposes and things like that. I'm not entirely familiar with how that whole online school thing works, but you know, they're utilizing the house for like a 2.5 week period of time. They signed on for some time, I think maybe coming up in the next month or so, and have paid the Arts Council for that. So the information that Bob and I got is that the Arts Council now feels as though it has enough funding under its current expenditures to get them to beginning part of May. I'm optimistic that some new board members on the Arts Council board would perhaps help to take things in a different direction. In what is done and how it's done and how often it's done. One of the things that Bob and I did when we were sitting down with Denise, I asked about when there's a wedding, what all is required of the Arts Council. Could someone booking a wedding work through their caterer to simply staff it that way? That basically somebody comes, unlocks the door, maybe as part of the rental fee, you require a special duty police officer to be there just to make sure that things don't get out of hand, make sure people know that, you know, there's somebody kind of keeping an eye on things, so behave. But as it relates to serving the food, beverages, and cleaning the plates off the table when they're done eating and things like that, you know, can caterers handle that? The comment being made that the city doesn't want to run the Shai House, I agree with that. But if the city is funding the entity that is running the Shai House, then guess what we're doing? We're running the Shai House.
No, we're not. We're not physically running it. We're giving money. But the whole idea was to get out where we don't have to physically be over there.
It would be cheaper for us, Dick, to hire part-time a maintenance person as a city employee part-time. It would be cheaper for us to do that than some other options that might be out there.
Then we should do that, because we're responsible for that. I think that one way or another, the maintenance is on us, and we haven't done that. And, you know, fortunately for us, they have done it so that the Shai House hasn't gone, you know, into disrepair. But I think that we are responsible, and I'm not saying we don't have a right to say how we want that done. But I think, you know, I'm not sure hiring a city employee, when you start then have to pay PERS and you have to pay benefits and all the things you don't have to pay, will be cheaper. But I think it's worth exploring. I mean, I think look at all the options and see what's best for the city. But I think we can't just continue to let them do it when we're not giving them any money, and then just say, well, they did it, so that's on them, you know.
Problem is, Deb, and I know you've seen the numbers as I have, the information that was provided to us in December showed that on average, the Arts Council has an average monthly expenditure of somewhere between $11,000 and $12,000. Jay, does that sound about right from what you recall?
They were a couple, whatever it was, they were a couple $1,000 or
They
something.
requested 10,000 a year, which would be slightly over what they were.
They requested $10,000 a month, which would have been $120,000 a year. I thought I remembered seeing the breakdown of the expenses and the income. The income was a 7,000 something figure.
I thought it was 11.5.
That's what I thought. I thought the expenses were in the 11 range.
I can quote them to you for.
Whatever that paper she gave us that day.
At that meeting in December.
January 16th was $12,691. February 11, 045. these are projected, March, 8,900, 8,700 to May, June, about 9,000. And, you know, it's trimmed to bare bones. That is no exaggeration. To run an operation, to be able to take, you know, keys and cultural events is not just answering the phone, but, and, you know, you guys, the council is getting these numbers of exactly what we spend and what we take in. We don't have any problem doing that, but it is a deficit each month. There's a lot to get into sitting there and answering the phone, and doing events, and making sure that the Princess Tea is this, and the Easter Bunny's that, and the, you know, the painting event or what have you. I mean, you know, the Oktoberfest was a tremendous amount of work. I mean, there was, what, 5 committees, I think, with, you know, about 4 or 5 people underneath them. You know, it gives you an idea, and those were all volunteers, granted. But you know, Denise worked her fingers to the bone, and so did Lisa, and so did, you know, our volunteer candidate. Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's up to you guys. You guys own the house. It's not really up to the Heath Community Arts Council board. We're doing what we can to kind of, you know, keep this thing going, because everybody that's there is deeply involved and loves it, you know, and I think that council understands that they've got something that they can show off for the city, you know, that they can take events to, or they can sign, you know, a deal for a business or something like that, or, you know, or you can sit, you know, somewhere else or whatever, but, the gist of it is, it does take more than just a maintenance guy walking in and out. You can't really throw the keys to somebody to come in and do an event and smash olives in the, you know, carpeting or what have you. We don't have a liquor license yet, so we gave that up, yeah. Well, we can't afford it. I mean, it's expensive, the insurance is expensive, and it was a decision that we all, so we let that go. So when people come, they have to either bring their own or do a one-day event.
Brian?
Well, no, I mean, the long and short of it, I can't speak for everybody here. I wish I could, because then it'd be my choice, that'd be great. But, what you came in here originally saying is we know there's some changes that need to be made, and we're trying to kind of reinvent the wheel here, I guess, a little bit, but we're also faced with the fact that April, May, it's over. You don't have any more money based on projections that we're talking about now. And Deb's saying, hey, we own some maintenance money from last year, which would help if you could get that. And I'm sitting here thinking, you know, I first of all, I am more than happy. I'd be more than willing to say, yes, let's take some bed tax money, general fund money. I know what the red ink is, Mayor. I understand that, but let's at least give them what they need to keep them going as we continue to reinvent the wheel, for lack of a better term, at the Shai House. Figure out what we're going to do, what direction, and things that we, you know. It's hard for you to book weddings when you don't know if the doors are going to be open in April or May. And if you can't book the events, then you're going to have less money to operate the house on. If you don't have that money, then your shortcoming is going to be even greater. And at some point in time, we know, you know, what the outcome is going to be. So, even if we got a little bit of that maintenance money, Mayor, why? I mean, is there a reason? And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Sure.
Is there a reason that we can't or didn't do that last year? At least the maintenance amount, which would
Yeah.
probably carry you for almost a month and a half. Based, if we're talking $17,000 for last year,
Yeah,
almost
we
2
were,
months.
here was the deal, Brian. We received an invoice for something that we didn't know we were gonna be billed for. Typically, when the city receives an invoice, it's because it has an understanding, it has an agreement that you do this and we're gonna pay you that. As Deb said, historically, since the beginning, you know, the city has done some maintenance things. I mean, I think Bob will attest that Parks Department, it's not as though the Parks Department is non-existent at the facility. But the Arts Council has had a maintenance person, either volunteer or paid, you know, to handle things like mowing grass, making sure the basement doesn't flood, making sure the roof doesn't cave in, doing some of the routine type, you know, things. We received an invoice last year that we didn't know was gonna be coming. That's typically not how we pay invoices.
Because we assumed that with the Parks Department, we would take care of the maintenance. Per the
We
agreement,
were
correct?
not, we don't usually receive a bill without knowing that we're gonna get a bill.
But I think last year was not what I would call a status quo year, and there was a lot of changes
No.
based on, you know, the
No.
vote and everything,
I
and so I
agree.
think there was no protocol in place for anybody, and I think it was just everybody just kind of winging it and going for it, and I think that, thank goodness for us that they took the initiative and they did it, and shame on us for not stepping in and figuring out if we weren't gonna pay for it, how it was gonna get done, because otherwise we would be in a bad situation. So I think it's kinda like when people don't mow their grass and don't mow their grass, and we just mow it and then we send them a bill. They didn't know that bill was coming, but, you know.
We inform them before we mow their grass that they need to mow their grass, and if they don't, we're going to mow the
Yeah,
grass.
the bill we received, the invoice we received was not a regular invoice that we had ever paid ever in the history of
Well,
this.
because we always given them the money to pay it, right?
Yeah, we used to use it for the bed tax,
Right.
but we had never been charged.
The lease does.
Pay a maintenance
Right.
person or anything like that.
And that's what generated it, is we didn't have
Right.
the money for
Right.
maintenance.
The lease.
We, as a board would be tickled if Mark, or the city gave us maintenance, you know, if there was a hired maintenance guy, we'd be tickled. Cause it's hard for us to, you know,
Right.
manage that, that's one more management wing that you have to watch over and take care of and make sure they're doing it right. Craig is incredible, and he loves what he's doing, and that's what most people, you know, that are there, everybody that's there, certainly now, you know, really care. But, you know, to that effect, us as a board are willing to talk to the city at any length of changing what you see on this paper, you know, and for how to run it. And we certainly invite, as Mark and Bob have heard, and you've heard, that, you know, we want input from the city and through a board member or through 2, board 5, whatever amount. You know, I'm not saying it has to be city. I know you don't wanna run it, but we need to know what you wanna do. And you need to know what we need, you know, to run your house for you. Cause it's your guys' house, you know, it's not ours. I mean, you know.
The mayor talked about, maybe you talked about hiring a part-time person to work for the city to maintain the house. Could we consider somebody like Craig, right, that's very familiar with the house? Maybe we do hire a guy like Craig to maintain the house, or take care of the maintenance from here going forward. Then that's kind of what you alluded to, let's hire somebody to do that, which would make you probably happy, because you've got somebody there that is qualified, knows how to do it, and at the same time, maybe reimburse them for the expenses, for the invoice we didn't know what we were getting, because they did pay it out of that tax fund, which would allow them a little more, you know, get you another month and a half going forward to continue to try to improve events. And I know you guys are communicating.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not, I'm
let
thinking
me-
short term right now, not long term.
And let me say this. Like I said, I share Park's thinking that things will be different moving forward. But all I can articulate to you is this. When we were at the December board meeting, now, in fairness, Park was not there for very good reasons. At that board meeting, I unfortunately felt that I had to state some of the obvious things, which I do know that the information presented to us at that December meeting showed in excess of $11,000 a month on average of expenses, and somewhere in the $7,000 per month on average of income. I unfortunately, in front of the people who work very hard for the Arts Council and do an effective job, in my opinion, had to articulate what I think is a simple fact, which is the Arts Council can't afford them because it cannot make the income to sustain their salaries. the information as I recall, and again, I'm going off the top of my memory, but it's fairly good at times. The information that I recall was seeing a figure in excess of $70,000 a year paid in 2015 in salaries. That's not a sustainable model, okay? Here's a question that I think needs to be asked, and I think the Arts Council's working through this. And it's gonna take some time, and we're there to work and to help and to try to do what we can without owning and running the Arts Council. It was made clear in that December meeting that there was no interest in them reducing their payroll expense. Bob, am I articulating that accurately? Jay?
There was no.
Deb?
There was nothing to change anything of what they had done in the past, in my impression of that meeting. So.
Yeah, so I guess, Brian, what I would say is that when you say, well, could we pay them a portion of whatever it was that was invoiced so they could get you along another month? I think the Arts Council's looking at tackling, and it's a good thing, the Arts Council's looking at tackling, well, what do we do, what are we going to be a year from now? You know,
And
not
those
just
are
a month
short
from
term.
now.
I did make the comment that I'm thinking short term here, and I am, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I'm just.
Those are some of the long-term decisions
Oh, yeah.
that I think the arts, and Park, you're on the board, so if I'm speaking out of turn, you please correct me. Those are some of the long-term decisions that I think the Arts Council Board is trying to tackle. Perhaps maybe with some new board members, with some different thoughts and some different ideas of what is the Arts Council? What's its scope? What does it do? How does it do it? Will help bring those kind of long-term changes. I hope that those happen, you know, relatively quickly, because if it's a month and another month, half and another, you know, there's nothing there to make that change happen.
So you're basically saying you'd like to see it happen sooner or later, and in fear of giving them the extra $17,000 for maintenance last year to just prolong the inevitable that they won't do it.
Without
Kind
change.
of what you're, that's what
Without change. I think you're right, Brian.
That's what you're.
Let me make a comment on something. At the December meeting, and I was not there, but so I don't know exactly how it was stated. But I would say this: if I was looking at payroll here, I would tell you that we can't reduce it either. As the chairman, I mean, there's no area there that we can say, okay, we fired Denise and we fired Elisa. I mean,
See that, and that's the conundrum. Under its current model, under what it does, I don't disagree with what Park's saying. As it currently does what it does and how it does it, they are at a skeleton crew.
So if that happens,
the thing
then you
is,
end up
it's
with
going
the
to cost the city. It's going to cost what's being paid, or what's being used right now, if you will, to run it somewhere. The worst case scenario, the Arts Council goes, we can't do this anymore. And, and they say, here, this house is here, and we're going to, I don't know, do we return deposits to people that are, the wedding thing, you don't want that to happen. But the worst case scenario, all of a sudden now the city has to oversee just maintaining a piece of real estate and, call it preventative maintenance, if that's the only thing, and then do 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever amount of cultural events to keep those events happening.
Well, there is no minimum number of events that need to take place at the Davis Shai House in order for the grants to be happy. To be honest, here's what the state doesn't want to have. The state doesn't want to have that facility that has been upgraded using state tax money. They don't want that facility to be utilized by a private business for profit, either through the city or to have the city sell it to a private business for profit. I've talked to the folks at the it's no longer called the Cultural Facilities Commission, has a different name, but it's the same people. There is no minimum number of events that needs to take place at the Shai House. I don't think the state is at all interested in operating the Davis Shai House. So, you know, I guess, Brian, what you said is kind of my point, in that it has to drastically change. I mean, it's unfortunately, the Arts Council has not, and by projections is not going to, generate enough income to sustain its payroll only. Even if the city took on the responsibility of having, as a city employee, a paid part-time person. So, if we accept that, then we can look at, okay, well, what do we do differently? Maybe the Arts Council is a, very heavily, or maybe solely volunteer-based organization. The model isn't sustainable. I mean, you guys understand what I'm saying? The model's not sustainable, and what we're not, as it is right now with the skeleton crew, and Park's right, to have somebody in there full-time as an assistant, to have somebody in there full-time as a, I don't know if Denise's title is director of Park, but I'll say that, because that's what I equate it to in my mind. To have somebody in there as a part-time volunteer coordinator on a part-time basis, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So, I mean, that model needs to be re-engineered. And again, perhaps it makes sense as part of that re-engineering of the model, the city's responsibility through the lease. Perhaps it makes sense for a part-time city employee as a maintenance person there. During the times where the house is maybe less used, perhaps maybe even like in the winter, like now, perhaps maybe just even the park staff, as part of their daily checks, would be able to do some of the very basic daily or weekly, routine maintenance items. I've spoken with Ron Brown about that. He's not uncomfortable with that possibility.
Doug?
I just, I guess maybe I just would like to ask one simple question that keeps going in my head, and that is, what is the Arts Council? Who is the Arts Council? Shai and Park, to my estimation, it's something that was here, but nobody knew what was going on with it because the city was giving you all this money. If that, it's just the way it is, that the members, instead of going out and trying to, I know you went to the state to get money to run the place and to fix it up and that, but to bring others in who would be financially able to kick a little money in, or, when you had the bed tax coming, it wouldn't, to me, it wouldn't be any reason for the Arts Council to be going.
Well, let me give you
I
the
don't
history.
know.
Let me give you the history. The history was that when the house was moved, we sat down with the city and we said, and Don Schoenhardt, the mayor of Hilliard, really was the guy that, architect of this design. He said, the community doesn't probably want to pay for this and have a tax on them to pay for that. So, but there's this vehicle called bed tax, and that's paid by people that come from out of town that pay their tax when they sleep in a room in a hotel. That money is generally used for travel and tourism promotion of that city. In most every city that gets that. So that was set up as that. The city at the time said, we don't really want to run it. We need a group of individuals or some entity that's gonna run that thing and watch over this and take care of it. And that's where the HCA, Community Arts Council Board, was formed. When it was added to, I guess, if you will, is when we got grants, is when we were told by the state that we have to have these cultural events to maintain those grants. And that's kind of hard for me to swallow, to do certain things to that house, because I was the face sitting there looking at all those people making the argument about how great this place is for the city of Heath. And you have to remember something, when somebody comes here to see that house, for whatever reason, imagine a wedding in town. Okay, if you quit doing weddings, now you're not selling booze and hotel rooms and sorry I used that, but food, buying things at Walmart, gas at the gas stations. I mean, it goes on and on. I mean, a dollar that comes into that building from the city, even if it was taxes, there's easy ways to find that out. It costs money to measure that, but it's probably $3 that's gained by the city. And so that's kind of the history there, but we don't have that. So I'm worried that what bothers or concerns me about it, and my term is up this year, so I mean, I have to make some personal decisions. So do 2 other board members there. But I think that if it's not promoted that way, you're going to see a loss in other areas that you're not going to feel until you see it. At the end of the year, or that's not like it's going to be doom and gloom. It may only be $50,000 in your budget, but gee, man, cry me, that's 50 grand. It's bringing in our tax. That is tax money that you're getting. So you got to measure this thing a little bit differently than that. But that gives you the history. I was getting off a little bit on something else, but that gives you the history of what the Heath Community Arts Council Board is, and what that wing is, and why they created the lease, and the kind of situation that it is, because they didn't want city employees in there. Although Jan was a city employee, I believe.
Yes.
but
She was.
Correct me,
And we paid a lot more
any-
for her than we do for her.
and,
But
anybody, correct me if I'm wrong. If arts councils are, no matter where these entities are, and I'm not only saying Heath, but there has to be other arts councils throughout the state of Ohio or whatever. And what is their role in the place that they may be fixed with? Are they going out, and are they the ones who are trying to raise money to be, as part of the arts council
Sure they are.
thing?
Sure they
They
are.
should be, right?
Well, that's what
So,
we do that.
okay.
We do that. Believe me.
When we
If you
had
look
the
at my checkbook in my
Oktoberfest event,
office,
I don't know whether or not you know this stuff. When we had the Oktoberfest event, Park was very involved in the process of trying to get sponsorship
Okay.
for the event. Money that businesses in the community and outside the community were helping to contribute for the event. Park's efforts raised almost 3/4 of the money that was raised from that Oktoberfest event. It's probably real close to 3/4 of the amount. So, I mean,
I just wish that there were.
I don't know whether or not you knew that or not, but I want you to understand that that's true.
I'm just,
And I really, it is unfortunate, I think. My sense of the tone of this conversation has gone negative. And that's very unfortunate, because I think in the past few months, there's been more interaction, information, sharing of ideas for long-term future direction between the Arts Council, mostly Park, and the city than there had been for a long time. The model that was originally established, without a doubt, was heavily reliant upon city money to make it work. That is not an option anymore. So the model needs to change. And I think that the Arts Council sees that. And I think that the Arts Council will work to try to make that happen. And the city is supportive in that and helping with ideas and suggestions as well.
And Mark, I don't disagree with you that the current model is not sustainable, and I know we talked at the last Arts Council meeting, and, you know, I said, you know, the city couldn't put money up just to kick the can down the road a few months, you know, if that's inevitably gonna be what's gonna happen, and I think that, you know, in my mind, you know, maybe, you know, right now, to do what you're doing now, you do need the same staffing, but is there a possibility, and I talked a little bit about this at the meeting, about maybe the Shai House isn't open as much as it is, and there's a transition where you're trying to rebuild, and maybe, you know, you're covering events, and maybe there's a times when there's an answering machine, and I know when I was booking my daughter's wedding venue, I had to leave messages with pretty much every place that I called, and they called me back. That was just the way that it worked, but I think that that's why I'm saying that as a city, before this falls apart, we need to sit down and not just talk about it once, you know, a month, but just come together, and I'm willing, you know, I've worked full-time, but I've got vacation, and I'll take some vacation time if it needs to happen during the day, but I'm willing to sit down and maybe try to hammer out. It's difficult because there are staff members there. I want them to keep their jobs full-time, and I want that to all happen, but I'm not sure that you can continue to do that unless, you know, some more things build, but I'm just trying to, as I said, give us some time, and I think we do owe them something, you know, for the money from last year, and I think that I'd like to see us move forward at least by giving them that, and then for us to make a commitment to sit down and talk through those things. And, you know, if there are gonna be new board members coming on, there may be some fresh ideas, and I know it's difficult for some of those that have worked so hard to make it what it is today, because that was not the deal they signed on for. But unfortunately.
And what, it's not their vision.
Right.
But their vision was built
at a different time.
heavily reliant upon
And that was
city
the
money.
plan, that was
And
the plan, that
yeah.
was the way it was meant to be, and that, they weren't even, you know, supposed to be trying to make money at that point. So I think that, you know, they've started that change, and I think it has to continue to evolve, but I think that it's in our best interest to keep it in place and to keep something going, and to, you know, have that vested interest protected, so.
I hope that, you know, didn't feel that I was coming off in a negative
Not at all.
way. It's just that, you know, I've looked at and heard, and the people have spoken through their votes of saying, hey, we don't want this money going to it. Now, that put, to me, the pressure on the Arts Council to even, you know, and it's great that you did what you did for the Oktoberfest, you know, but you're just one of the members of that Arts Council.
That's right.
And, you know, maybe they have or maybe they haven't done, you know, things that could help. And I just don't, I'm not coming off as negative. I'd like to see the thing have other things like the Oktoberfest. And, you know, I really believe there are things that they can do over there, and I'll just leave it at that.
And there may be ways to, you know, bring some of your ideas about, like, bringing other caterers in and working with that, but I
Yeah.
think you need some staff to make that all happen,
Well,
make it gel, so.
You know, what,
Let's be with you just a minute.
I've got a building downtown near the old post office, and a guy by the name of Bentley Austin, I always do that backwards, runs it. It's the Skylight. And he also has the vault in Columbus. And he does weddings and he does events there, and he's one guy, he's, you know, and I'm pointing, you know, he's one guy that's there. He's there all day long, every day. And he's got a maintenance guy that he calls on when he needs something fixed. But he's walking in, he sees that property, and he books it. And the place is I won't say packed every day, but he's booked, I don't know how many weddings. I mean, you know, he pays good rent, I'll tell you that. And so, I mean, maybe that's a model that we should look at, you know.
It's
I mean,
a huge facility.
you know, and
It
a
is,
huge
it's a large,
facility.
I think Heath is having its prom there. I think I found that out yesterday.
Good.
Heath is having its prom in May at that facility.
It is.
It is big, which is a big advantage over the Davis
The
Shea
Skylight.
House. It's
Yeah.
big.
The old
The old post office.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's
Okay,
a-
Joan, you wanted to say say something?
I'll pass.
You pass? Okay, all right.
Could I have her place? Go ahead, go ahead.
I just wondered, does David Shea House know at the end of 2014 that they weren't gonna be allocated the bed tax?
At
They
the
knew
end
that
of
was a
2000
possibility because it was, we were, you know, we didn't.
At the end of 2014?
Yeah, I guess because they're sending you a bill and you are frustrated that
Yes, yes, because
you
that
weren't
was
confronted
November.
before you received the bill,
No,
that
no,
you didn't
no,
know.
we
you
didn't.
No, we
do
didn't
it.
know, no.
So.
Wait, let's back up, let's back up, let's back up.
We didn't know till
See
now.
where
Let's
I'm
back
going
up.
here.
In the fall of 2014, there was a referendum, yeah, thank you. And then in the spring of 15, there was another. As part of the management agreement that the city has with the Arts Council, we receive an invoice from the Arts Council on a quarterly basis for a portion of the amount for that is used to offset payroll. Okay, it was, and I don't remember if it was for the third quarter or for the fourth quarter invoice. We received not only that invoice, but this thing for maintenance costs, which we didn't know. So it was either for third quarter of 15 or fourth quarter for 15 that we received this maintenance thing.
I just wondered timeline, because you said it needed to be something you guys all agreed upon before the cost was accrued. I just didn't know
That was
if they
part of the
knew.
problem, I think, because we were in that mode, kind of in limbo.
What's gonna happen.
And nobody knew, and I think there was no protocol set for how it was going to be handled, and that's why I'm saying we should probably be doing some. And I know we probably need to be moving forward
Yeah.
pretty soon, so Ronnie had a question, and then I think we probably need to wrap it
Right.
up for today, and.
Just as a taxpayer, I'm sort of at a loss to see why, you know, a business that's paying no rent and no mortgage, no insurance, no natural gas, no electric, no water, no sewer, no TV cable, no internet, not paying for maintenance, well, except for that. And, you know, you give me some volunteers, and you give me $118,000 in bed tax on top of all that, and I'm not gonna come up $66,000 short.
Well, I think, Ronnie, there's no bed tax
There's
money
no bed
anymore.
tax.
I know, but I'm just saying that, that's a recent year.
Oh.
And now, you know, there's banquet halls that are open, that have been open, I'm sure, for some time, that have to pay their own rent, their own insurance, their own, you know, pay their employees. They're not, people don't volunteer for them. You know, what's the difference here?
Well,
Explain it
It's
to me.
not a
It's not a
business,
bank.
that's the difference. It's not a business.
Okay.
They
It's a
can't make
cultural arts
money,
center.
it's a 501c3, and I think that was not what they were told to do from the beginning. I think it's just now we're evolving into something different, and I think that none of us, most of us, well, not, I don't say not, most of us weren't here when that was all put in place all those years
I
ago.
mean, I know that even back when Jan was there, and Park and I had conversations too, you know, a few years ago at least. There has always been the idea of the Arts Council being less financially reliant upon the city. I mean, that's not an entirely out of the blue concept. The need for it to be certainly has been highlighted, but the concept is not something that's
Yes, Jen.
Let me just mention that historically speaking, when Jan Wilkin left the house was almost self-sustainable except for 30-some%. And then the next 2 years, they did get the total bed tax, but the director ended up, as Ronnie said, and Michael said, with $66,000 in the hole. What happened?
But you have to remember, Joan, you may say sustainable, but they were receiving all the bed tax. We were paying about $85,000 probably for Jan's salary that wasn't coming out of anything there.
her number was around 60 or
No, but we
something.
paid PERS, we paid all the benefits, so it was probably probably 80, 85
Okay,
easily.
I
Yeah,
see what you're
that's what
saying.
it was costing us, and
Okay, but
so.
they still got the bed tax the next 2 years.
Right, but
in total.
we stopped paying for a lot of the other things. We stopped paying for things like, I know if they had a computer breakdown, it was up to them to replace or repair. A lot of the things that had been taken care of when Jan was there, because it was being run more as a city-run facility, were no longer paid for. So there were a lot of differences. We cut the cost a lot over those 2 years to what we gave them.
And this is what I'm saying, I mean, I think the conversation unfortunately has devolved into the past.
Yeah, and I'm.
That's right.
Everybody on the Arts Council board, Bob, me, Jay, you, we're not looking at the past anymore. We are looking at the future. We are trying
Have
to put together a plan for, you know, what it will be. The past is, you know, what it was, but, you know, I like I said, I'm looking forward to seeing how things go.
I was not completely done.
Oh.
You know, it's a beautiful place, and I wish nothing but the best for it, but, you know, there's a number that was brought before the voters of Heath, and that number was $75,000, and they said no.
Right.
I mean, I hope you all keep that in mind.
Right, and we're not saying to give them that 75,000. What I'm saying is to pay what we owe them, for something that we didn't step in and take care of, and I don't think that's unreasonable. And for us
No.
to step in and try to help them.
If we owe
you
it,
know,
we should pay it, yeah.
I think that's what I'm saying, and I don't know about how everybody else feels, but I feel like we should be, you know, drafting some legislation to at least take care of the 15,000, and then we'll vote on it, you know, and see what.
If that goes by the letter of the lease, which it does, then I support that. But beyond that, you know, we can't wrap this thing up in something other than what the voters have already.
But you
said.
agree, we owe for what we owe.
The lease, as I understand it, calls for us to pay more maintenance.
Yes.
It makes the city responsible for maintenance, and this is the important distinction. This is the difference between knowing that you're gonna be paying for something to be done and then having a bill sent to you without knowing that it is. Had we known that, what we would have done then is I would have sat down with Bob and we'd have said, okay, what can the Parks Department staff do today to handle this, that, or the other? Deb, that's an extremely important distinction between getting an invoice after the fact and not knowing that you're getting it, as opposed to knowing in advance. We can't handle these things. We need some help, financial or otherwise, to get these routine, daily, weekly, monthly, maintenance type things done. Had we known that that situation was gonna be asked of us, we would have looked through other means to address that.
Anything that
Which,
had to
moving
do-
forward, is something that we ought to look at because the lease does stipulate.
And I don't know if we still have that invoice, but we have taken care of the house. Any major thing that needs to be done to the house, the city has to pay for it 100%. Even when Craig worked for the city and things had to be done, he had to go to Lowe's. I mean, I was getting bills from Lowe's all the time about little maintenance stuff. So what they sent us was not a normal thing that we had ever paid before. We are not required to pay a maintenance person there. If they don't wanna pay that, then we will go over there and check the house. We had Craig over there all the time for 10 years, doing things. So the bill that they sent us was not anything normal than, you know, than what we have been paying, because we have consistently paid for those things as time goes on.
But that was I think that year was different than any other year because we hadn't done that because we had always just taken care of it. And I think that, as you've said, we're talking about history. We can't go back and change what happened in that year. But we didn't know we were gonna be invoiced for that, but we also knew we weren't taking care of the maintenance because you were at the meeting, and I know many of us were there when we met there, and the former maintenance person, John, told us all these things that have to happen weekly, monthly, quarterly. You knew somebody was getting paid for that, we knew that, so we weren't paying for it, so we knew it wasn't coming
We're
from.
not
the
required to
village.
pay for that.
We are.
We're required to
Why?
see that it be done.
We've never
It's not
paid for
required
that.
that we pay the Arts Council to do it.
I've never paid for a maintenance person at the Shai.
No,
No,
because.
no, I'm saying, they were doing it out of bed tax money, but what I'm saying
Yeah.
is, we weren't giving them bed tax, and what I'm saying is, we knew we were responsible, and we knew we weren't sending anybody over to do it. Like I said, thank goodness they were doing it, so I still say we owe that to them. I'm not arguing about, like you said, the other things and giving them money for things we don't owe, but we can't change how it was handled, but we owe that money.
If they needed something done, they could have called us like they did in 10 years before that. I mean, I didn't get any requests saying, no, we're not going to go over there, we're not going to take care of the maintenance. We never said that. It almost sounds like we didn't do our job in the Parks Department, and that's not true.
No, I'm not saying that.
If they said, if they needed something done, we would have sent someone over. Up to when Craig retired, he was over there doing whatever anybody ever asked him to do. And after he retired, then Ronnie would have done the same thing. If they didn't ask, then how would we know? We don't mow the grass over there, they had a volunteer, they decided to pay for those kind of
They
things.
stopped
We
asking.
never paid for those kind of things.
The lack of proactive communication after Craig left. And
But all they ever had to do was call us and ask, because we would never say no to any maintenance issues about the Shai House.
Was the city responsible for going to them and then saying, hey, what can we pay for you for? What can we help cover for you?
No,
I
but they
mean,
tried to tell us those things that needed done, and I think at that point, we needed to say, how are we gonna handle that? And we needed to step in and do something, and we didn't, so. Okay, I know we need to move on, but any final thoughts from anyone before we move on?
I would support, paying that invoice, I can tell you that.
How much was that invoice for, Deb?
12,000, like I said, I was proposing 15,000, because going through March of this year, it was,
I'd like to see the,
12,504.
I wonder, and maybe we can dig up the paperwork from that meeting. Jay, do you happen to recall
I just got the letter.
how much they listed as Craig's salary for the year in that December meeting? Was it in the ballpark of $12,000 that they paid Craig for the year
That's what it
of
says,
2015?
12,504, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I was gonna say, cause I know, cause we were thinking, or the thought was, heck, 15,000 a year, a maintenance guy, that's a pretty good deal.
What's that invoice for,
Part-time.
Bob?
I mean, I do
Dates.
remember that
Right.
conversation.
For what date?
Dates, from when to when?
January 1st to December 31st, 2015.
Okay.
And that's why I was saying, I don't know that we could hire a part-time person and pay benefits and PERS and all that, for that kind of money, so.
But for a long time,
Hmm?
and Bob
It's
probably
not the
said
budget anyway.
it was probably done by volunteers.
Say that again, please.
It was all of this was done by volunteers at one time. All of them, before they started paying someone money, but it was by all volunteers. And then I think when the director came in after Jan, she really started paying everything.
Yeah, for 11.5 years.
Okay, well, I think we need to wrap this up because we have to do finance and caucus and, move on. So I will adjourn Parks Rec, Davis Shea at 7:07.
get a copy of this?
I don't
These around.
They got 'em over there.
We got the Irwin one.
Is there more?
Who else got one?
What's that? Did you get one?
Yeah, right. Well, you weren't gonna get one.
Thank you.
Everybody get a copy?
Thanks, Bart.
Thank you.
Finance, call it 7:08. Go ahead, Jay.
Is the police chief around?
You wanna see him in that doorway?
He'll stand there forever.
Did he leave? Okay, I'll start. We have one legislative request, asking for appropriation of $50,000 within the capital improvements to police capital outlay to cover the cost of purchase and upfitting of one new Ford Police SUV and one used unmarked sedan. Both vehicles are replacement vehicles.
He left, he went back.
I'll fill in for
You
him.
can go come and explain.
The police SUV, that would be, cycling in a new Explorer pursuit vehicle and cycling out, an existing Charger. The unmarked sedan, one of our detectives, the unmarked car, needs to be replaced. It's starting to rack up some maintenance expenditures. It's a similar car to what our older patrol cars are. So the unmarked sedan that we currently use would be traded in, and then a portion of this appropriation, along with the proceeds from that trade-in, would be used to purchase the new unmarked and get it equipped. The rest of the money would be used for the Ford Explorer patrol vehicle. Chief Mason, I think as I outlined in an email to everybody, Chief Mason would, oh, there he is. Trying to fill in for you here for a second. You can fill in the gaps. It's my understanding from Chief Mason that there has been an unmarked vehicle that they would like to purchase. I don't know if it's still available to be purchased, but the request would be made to waive the second reading and vote on the appropriation, hopefully in the affirmative, so that the money then would be available to go ahead and purchase this unmarked before it's no longer available. Is that right?
It's gone.
It's gone?
Yeah, but as long as we have a budget amount to work within, it won't be difficult to find a sedan with our needs.
Okay.
The money.
Not a Dodge.
What's that?
Not a Dodge?
Oh, no,
What is the total cost and equipment of the SUV?
Okay.
I mean, I'm just looking to, how much you gonna have left to buy a sedan?
Oh, the SUV will be $27,851 for the vehicle itself from Matthews Ford. The upfitting is $9,440. It leaves right around $13,000 left to that with and trade as well, which not going to be much for that particular
Plus the
vehicle.
trade-in.
Yeah.
Okay. Because it's has 165,000 miles on it. It's a 2007 Dodge.
Okay.
And it's eating us up. Nickel diamonds.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay?
And that was part of your capital
Yes.
improvement request anyways.
Correct.
I remember
Yes.
that.
The issue is the waiving of the second reading
Right.
so that the money's available.
Yeah, it was
That's
already-
the,
it was part of the budget.
that's the, yeah.
That's obviously an ordinance on tonight's,
Yeah, that is.
Deb, any other
One.
comments?
No.
Committee? Second one is, this one, you got this one?
Yeah, I wrote it down. The second, I have a second one that just came in out of Bob's, committee a little bit ago. Appropriate the $25,821.65 within capital improvements to seal the pool parking lot. That obviously, will go on for, or if you guys are okay, it'll go on for next reading. Or next council
meeting.
meeting.
Next meeting. Any other comments, Deb?
No, we talked about that.
$25,821.65.
All right.
And outside of that, just a reminder, and I'll just keep this on other items for a while until everybody says they did it, because it's a good reminder for me also. Do your financial disclosure statement, due by Monday, May 16th, and you do it online. And I did receive everybody's questionnaire back that Wilson, Shannon, and Snow will be here starting Monday the 8th, and they requested that party questionnaire thing that they do, so we did all that last week.
That's what he said.
Yep, I have them all. So, just to let you guys know, they'll be here starting Monday, so. Doug got that one, so he has his.
The online takes about 5 minutes to do it.
Yeah. 4 just to get hooked up, and then about a minute to get through it.
Yeah.
They want your card, but.
Or if you forgot your password from last year, so.
Yeah, I did.
That's right.
Yeah, I know.
Twice.
Yeah.
Outside
Anything
of that,
else? Anything else for finance?
Jeff, just real quick, a couple weeks ago when we spoke and we were talking about tax rates, potential increases and stuff like that, Kim has run the numbers on a new chart based on our 2015 revenue. So let's maybe plan on putting that on the finance committee
Yep.
agenda for February 16th.
yeah, I wanted to talk to her before we, okay. Yep. And I'll have the payroll, I should have the payroll chart by then also.
Anything else?
Thank you.
We're adjourned. 7:14.
Mr. Morrow, you do the application, and we'll need to excuse Mr. Henry.
I'll do that.
And then, petition communications, the delinquent accounts, now, I know some delinquent accounts thing, it doesn't have the amounts, and I mentioned that in the committee report, the amounts